Over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of hubbub going on involving the situation involving Senator Mark Kelly and five other members of Congress, involving a video presentation they prepared telling people in the United States military you don't have to obey illegal orders. All right, that's fine. They did it. That was their call. The problem was, in many people's minds, what illegal orders were they talking about? And that was never specified. And that has then created a secondary problem that could result in Senator Kelly actually being called back to active duty. And that would be under 10 USC 688. You can actually take someone in the military who is retired and you could bring him back in for a certain period of time. Now, if that happens, but the Defense Department says that's what they're going to do, he can fight that if he wants. He has certainly every right to do that. But the laws may say, hey, you got to return. Now, what could happen if they decide to bring him back, and what could they do to Mark Kelly? Well, one, they could use 10 USC 14509 and take away his pension. Right now, at least deduct his pension by a certain amount percentage. Currently, he earns $120,000 a year as a retired Navy captain. That's on top of his Senate salary. So he's doing pretty well retirement-wise in the military. Or else they could go on to Article 133, which is conduct unbecoming of an officer. Also a court-martial under Article 88, which is contempt towards superiors. I mean, there's a lot of things they could pull out and utilize. But here's the issue that could come up if, in fact, it goes this far. If it goes this far, the lawyers representing Senator Kelly could pull up a Supreme Court decision. And that one was one known as New York Times versus the United States. Back in 1971, it was called the Pentagon Papers. And this was a gentleman that had a big file they wrote from the United States, and he ultimately ended up releasing it to the New York Times and the Washington Post, who started publishing it. Then it went to the Supreme Court saying, hey, you can't publish that. It's government secret stuff. The court said, no, in this case, you could publish it. So could they pull that up in the Supreme Court and say the U.S. versus the New York Times? Yes, they could. That could very well happen. But there's one other thing that, well, you might want to think about. Here's something going on. In the Constitution, it says that members of Congress are free to, well, criticize the president. Yes, that's correct. They can legally criticize the president as what it says in the Constitution. And that clause in there may be the big clause that may ultimately be utilized by these members, these six members, as well as Mark Kelly. Now, he's the only one being recalled because he's the only one who's retired. Keep that in mind. The other people, Slotkin and Crew and Deluzio and Goodhandler and Houlihan, they are not retired individuals in the grand scheme of things. They did not serve 20 years. Kelly did. So, what's going to happen there? Well, here's where it could go. They could say, hey, we have a right in the Constitution to criticize the president as we see fit during our duties. And that, my friends, will take it to the United States Supreme Court. I could pretty well guarantee you that if it goes down the road, if all the things that are said by the government, here's what we're going to do, we're going to pull you back in, we could cut your rank back to commander from captain, we could take half your retirement pay, all those things they could do. And if they try to do it, I guarantee you this will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because it will say, what can senators and congressmen say about the president? Because, keep something in mind, when you enroll and when you enlist in the United States military, you take an oath. And in that oath, it says you will do what the president says. You will show loyalty. And you will do it within the restrictions of the UCMJ and the rules and regulations of the military. Now, the rules and regulations in there say if something is illegal, you in the military have a right to refuse doing it. Now, this would go like to something when, well, you remember when Joe Biden was talking about if people wanted to take over the government, Joe Biden said, well, they need an F-15. Well, All right, but somebody's got to fly that F-15. And if the pilot of that F-15 that Joe Biden was talking about says, hey, I ain't flying, what you're trying to do is attack the American people, is it legal? Well, there comes the legal issue right there. Is it legal for a president to tell a military pilot to go kill Americans? Okay, it's hypothetical, but that's exactly what Biden said about you need an F-15 to take over the government. So, what's going to happen with all this? I'll tell you right now, my feeling is that, yes, they've come out and said, we can recall you. That is legal, that's very specific, and that can be done. But if that is exercised, then they're going down the Article 88, the Article 133, and other sections of the UCMJ that could be utilized. And if they are utilized, will that bring a United States Supreme Court into this mix? My personal belief is, yes, it will. It will once and finally say what congressmen and senators can say about the President of the United States as members of Congress and the U.S. Senate. It's in the Constitution, but how far can they take it, and what can they say with it, and what can they violate if they do? It's a tricky one, folks, but that could very well end up in the Supreme Court. That's my opinion. Let's see what happens. But if they go through with this stuff, I tell you, it will, in my humble opinion, end up as a very big case in the United States Supreme Court. Let's see what happens if it does, in fact, go down that road.